So until Mike starts the meeting, hi everyone, long time no see.
Hey, Rick. I just got back from Oregon myself. Our first 3 days were around 105 degrees in Salem.
Ooh.
And then we went to the coast where it was about 70. quite a difference.
Yeah, no
But
kidding.
beautiful countryside. We stopped by some orchard and picked up fresh peaches. I don't know what it is about going to an orchard and just biting into a fresh peach this time of year.
Nothing better, nothing better.
Well, we're at 5:30. Jody, we're recording. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Remington, a Duval City Council member and also Mayor Pro Tem. You're joining us for Tuesday, August 17th, City Council Committee of the Whole. We affectionately call that our COW. It's now 5:30 in the evening. We have several items on our agenda. If it's okay with council, I'll move our good of the order to the end. We have some special guests with us. Unless there's, raise your hand if you're opposed to that. I'm not seeing any hands. If for some reason we don't get to the good of the order at the COW, you can certainly, when mayor offers or opens it up for individual council members speak, do that at the council, city council meeting later this evening. Tonight we have 3 or 4 items. The Seattle Art Project presentation by our own Diane Brudnicki and some special guests, our financial planning process, personnel manual update, and council retreat update, all 3 of those items by our interim city administrator, Mr. Ryan Cotton. So with that, we will start with the Seattle Art Project. We have the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And Mayor, I know you sent out some special invites. I was going to introduce you and see if you could introduce Stephanie and maybe Diane for us this evening.
Yes, happy to do that. So first of all, I just definitely want to say how appreciative I am of Councilmember Brudnicki and all of her work and the work of everyone that's been a part of this project over the past 20 years. And Diane, could you quickly introduce Stephanie? I don't have the contact information for her right now in front of me.
Yes, I can. Welcome, Stephanie, to our meeting. I've worked with Stephanie for 20 years, and she has been from the very beginning with Voices Center for Resilience. And she wears many hats there. She coordinates, she's that person that does everything. She's Mary Fetchett's right hand and left hand in the organization. So she's joining us tonight because I'm going to have her speak a little bit about this. You would need the context once you see the whole story of what I will be presenting.
Thank you. And Councilmember Brudnicki, for those that are watching and are not aware, is an absolutely amazing artist who's put her heart and soul into the arts her entire life, in addition to the community. And I first met Councilmember Brudnicki about 8 years into this project. And I am absolutely amazed at the dedication of those that have participated in the Seattle Art Project and the absolute profound impact that they've made locally and nationally with their work to remember and commemorate all of the voices of the victims of 9/11 and bringing their messages of peace, hope, and love to everyone impacted directly by the tragedy that we saw nearly 20 years ago. I had the privilege of getting to preview the presentation in short form yesterday, and I am absolutely in awe at the talent and the heart that you can see in every single art piece that has been created through the years with this project. And so with that, I'm very much looking forward to hearing this presentation and sharing it with our community and acknowledging just the incredible work and care and grace that has gone into this over the years.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Diane, we'll turn it over to you for our presentation. We're looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to share the screen, right? So my assistant here will be sharing because I'm going to do a presentation.
And I will note, I'm not seeing our special guests yet, but as soon as they do arrive, I will make note to introduce them.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mayor.
Okay, so we can all see that?
Yes.
Great. All right. So today I really want to share the story about 20 years of a Seattle art project, which was made up of students primarily, with a handful of local artists that have dedicated themselves to supply art to the families of 9/11 every year in order to support them and to let them know that we remember. So with that, I want to share the story, but before I share the story, I do want to introduce you to Mary Fetchett. She is the founding director of Voices Center for Resilience, and there she is with the students in 2 different times. And I was wondering, Stephanie, if you could tell us a little bit about Voices and Mary Fetchett before I go into the whole presentation. Can Stephanie hear me?
She can probably hear you. She might be on mute.
You know, I would think I was on mute.
There
Sorry.
you
Can you
go.
hear me
We
now?
can hear you. Yep.
Mary's going to be joining us, and she really wanted to give a little bit more of the background on Voices. But Mary herself is a social worker and lost her son, Brad, who's 24, on 9/11. He was working for Keith Bruette in Woods. He was just about to get engaged and had his whole life ahead of him. And he did call and left her a message, which you can hear if you go to the museum. And of course, it's heartbreaking. I've heard it maybe 200 times, and I still catch my breath listening to it. But she decided that, you know, she had the hat of a mother, and she had the hat of a doer, and she had the hat of a social worker. And she said, people need information. And it's kind of hard to believe that back in 2001, very few people had cell phones. Very few people had computers. There's like one computer with everybody sharing one email. And so she started distributing information by going out and collecting it herself and making copies in her dining room. And we would have weekly meetings, and you know, she just didn't want another woman or mother or anybody to have to walk in the shoes that she was walking in. And she just took it upon herself to really try to make a difference. And so we started doing support groups for families. And since it affected 90 countries and people from basically everywhere in the United States, we started teleconference groups, which, you know, sort of became the rage this year. So we kind of are very proud that we started this 20 years ago, and we've done probably 1,800 of them at least so far. And she was very active in making sure that the 9/11 Commission was started and it reflected the needs of the families. She was also very, very involved in the formation, the design, and making sure that, again, the families' wishes were involved in the creation of the memorial and of the museum. So she took positions and all that. In fact, you know, several very well-known people would see her, like Mayor Bloomberg, and kind of try to walk in the other direction because she knew that he was going to give her an earful about what the families wanted, and that, you know, that was his responsibility. And so she's really always, you know, in fact, she works herself crazy. She's always done it. So she's really an incredible role model, and she's sort of in the heart of the organization. And about 15 years ago, her husband retired from IBM. And I think he said it was either, you know, join him or lose him. So he decided to join the organization. He's our full-time volunteer, and he does all of our business. You know, everything that, as he says, he keeps the lights on for us, which is great. But one of the things is this symposium, which is where Diane fits in, was really sort of just a forum in which we could exchange ideas, some that we agreed with, some that we didn't agree with, but we really needed to have a place where people that were kind of walking the same walk could come together and find camaraderie, and could find counseling, and could find cutting edge therapies and stuff like that. So that's sort of the genesis. And Mary is a force to be reckoned with, which you will see when she joins us. She's actually speaking right now in front of another group because she doesn't know that there's this thing that anybody in social work, one of the first things you learn is boundaries. Well, she's the only person I know who has no boundaries. If somebody asks her to do something, she does it. So anyway, I will let Diane get back to this, but it's been a privilege working with her, as it has been many, many people that I've come across.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. So that covers it really well. So I'm going to share a pretty incredible story here. And why I wanted to share this was because as leaders in communities, we have so many tools available to us to inspire and to have us work together and form that sort of wonderful unity as communities do, and to do positive things. And so this is a story all about that. And I think when you get through it, you'll be changed from the story of these wonderful students. So the story begins 2 weeks after 9/11 happened. I had to start my classes and I had 75 students. And I decided that I couldn't do the current curriculum because it was not appropriate for what was happening. Instead, I went to class and I said to the students, you will do a watercolor project, and the goal will be for you to create something that brings comfort to a child who was impacted by 9/11. Once I gave them that direction, the students were almost relieved that they could finally participate and do something because we were just feeling so lost. And so for 3 weeks, they painted and created their messages of peace, hope, and love. And the goal was simple: please consider a child like you impacted by 9/11, and what would they need? What kind of image could you create to offer them comfort? That was pretty much it. When we were done in 3 weeks and we looked at the paintings, it was clear that these students had put more than what I had even anticipated. And we're talking 7-year-old all the way to teenager. So I called my friend Milan Hager over and I said, you need to come see these paintings before we send them to New York. And when he saw the 75 paintings, he said, Diane, there's thousands of kids impacted. You can't just send 75 paintings and 1 painting to each child. These paintings need to be shared for all the children. So I said, well, that's great. What do we do? And he said, we make a book. And I won't go into the details of how that all happened, but very quickly, he was able to work with a high school classmate, actually, in Czechoslovakia from way back when. And they produced the book all the way over there. 3,000 books were then shipped to the United States. And then the next question was going to be, how do I connect to the families to, give the books out to the children? And back then it was really difficult and it was very chaotic. So I didn't have the sort of internet thing that we have today, but I did have Oprah Winfrey. So I actually saw that she was going to have a day where family members were going to speak and people who had advocacy groups. So I decided to tune in, and there was a gentleman, I think his name was Anthony, and I got his email because they provided his email, and I contacted him right away. And I said, I have these books that I want to give to the families that these children have made. And he connected me with Mary Fetchett and Beverly Eckert at that time. So I sent the images to them, and they were very, very supportive and excited about the book and thought it was lovely. So with that, in April, after 9/11, I took a team of students with me and a couple of parents and the 3,000 books and the original art to New York City to deliver to Voices. And we gave the original art to the New York City Fire Commissioner's office. And then once that got taken care of and it was then given to the families and children, as would be expected, we now receive a lot of letters and emails from the families thanking us for the support and the difference it made for them. But more importantly, they shared the stories of their loved ones. And as I was sharing those stories with the students, they got very inspired to say, Mrs. Brudnicki, we should continue making art. And so I said, okay, let's just continue. Why would we stop? And so with that, we continued to make art and build more projects for Voices. And we would go to their forum and deliver the art on the anniversaries. So Mary Fetchett had this idea. It was an idea, it was a way to rebuild and to create an award for those who contributed to the community. And so she had a discussion with me one day and said, let's do a building bridges type of project. She's very good at being very creative about ideas to help people. And so with that, I developed a couple of workshops, and the students started creating the Building Bridges project, which are all art that reflects the idea of building unity towards a goal of healing and building resilience. And so one of the pieces she selected became the Building Bridges Award that she uses to hand out to people who support the families. And then there was the Friendship Box project in 2006. This was a time where the students were getting older, and I decided to invite our youth to become leaders. I handed this project over to Chloe DeJacque, who then created the friendship boxes for our 2006 Seattle Art Project gift. The students were creating decorated boxes with personal notes in them of friendship and little gift items that went with the theme of their boxes. And then I created the dream box because when I would visit the family forum, you know, it was so challenging and it was so hard. And I thought, you know, who out there is really dreaming anymore, or even going into an idea of like having a dream? So I thought, I want to make a box that could get someone to think about that. And so I created that box, and I had a little note in there about, you know, start dreaming and rebuilding your life. And so this box spoke to a widow whose husband died at the World Trade Center. And she was really touched because she recalled conversations she had about pursuing dreams. And so she took this box and told me that she would now start to go down that road of thinking about how to dream again. So when we went to do the friendship boxes, this was a time where a lot of the children were coming to workshops that Voices provided for them to help them through that healing process. And so this year they had special people come to do all kinds of workshops with the children. So we want to make a lot of boxes that would be appropriate for kids. And so what I did was I went and collected a bunch of things to decorate boxes for my children to make. And one of those things was a motorcycle that I just popped in to the table here, and my son picked it up immediately, and he said, I'm going to make a Harley Davidson box. And I said, well, Ian, this is for children. Let's focus on that. And he goes, there's going to be a kid that's going to like this. And so I said, okay, you go make that Harley Davidson box. And so he did. And then when we got to deliver these, we put all the boxes out, and the first group they brought in to select were the children. And the first box selected was a Harley Davidson box. And so I didn't think much of it, but I went to sit in the workshop later that day, and the mother of this young boy slipped me a little note and said, thank you, and can I talk to you? Sure. So after the workshop, she came up to me and she said, I just want to thank you for your thoughtfulness. Whoever made the box, thank them for being so thoughtful. And just want to know, like, how did you know? And so I said, excuse me, it's very emotional. I said, how did I know what? And she said, how did you know that my son and his father had talked about getting a Harley Davidson and that they were to go shopping for one before the tragedy? And I said, I didn't, and neither did my son. But this is what I'm talking about in regards to the Harley Davidson motorcycle box, is a story of a young boy's dream to shop with his dad, and how this box was so meaningful to him. And this is how art is able to translate and connect with people in such a deep and meaningful way. So I'm sorry, this is always a hard story for me. On the other side is Chloe DeJacque, her box. It's a dragon box that spoke to a mother who shared the story of her firefighter son, how he loved dragons, and how she could have this box because with its note of strength of dragons and the items that made her recall her son's youthful days, she wanted this box to remember, again, honoring and remembering those who were lost but not forgotten. At the family forum, we like to also do some activities on occasion with families. And this is the memory quilt. And we're creating opportunities for the families to share their stories of their loved ones in a memory quilt. Here, we have their picture and we put it onto a little patch and then they get to decorate it. So throughout the years, as we continued to support the families with art gifts, we learned that the art heals and builds resilience for those who create as well as those who do receive. And so here you have these students have been working and delivering art for 6 years. And what I've noticed that as people who participated, they matured into altruism and care for community. And it was such a wonderful thing to watch and to witness as I was teaching them throughout the years. We also did mixed art projects, and I can't put them all in the slideshow because we'd be here all night. But here are some other samples. And one year, Sam Matson, he decided that he would go to the graffiti wall at our skate park, and he wanted to do an ode to Mary Fetchett there. So that's what the title of this project was called for him, because she had had such an impact in his life and had literally changed him with the inspiration of how she cared for community and devoted herself to that. So normally when you do the graffiti wall and paint something on it, it disappears in 1 to 2 days. Somebody shows up and paints over. But in this case, this was up for over a month. And then growing up with the years of contributions, the young artists became adults who then understood the value of building a strong community through the vision of altruism and care for others, and they witnessed the power of humanity as they worked together to shape the future. At the 10th anniversary, it was really going to be a big thing. So I really wanted to make that art personal as we shared the stories of those who perished. So Voices gave us over 200 names that we then assigned to volunteers to read the stories of the person they received and then create a lino block design that would be printed onto a flag. And here you see Dan Cottrell, he's our local artist. He's participated in this project for most of the years. And here he is helping out and printing with us. He volunteered to assist us in printing over 800 prints for this project. To build this project took over 200 volunteers. Everyone was invited to participate, from a 7-year-old like Evie to senior citizens. You didn't have to be talented, you didn't have to be skilled. Everybody was invited to come to read, to hear the stories, and then to create these flags. We had also volunteers from West Pierce Fire and Rescue, and they worked at fundraising for us and donated the second printer that we needed to complete this project. We also at the time had Will Ibershoff, who was the mayor of Duval. He, along with some of his family members, came and they created carvings as well. We had carvers, we had printers, we had sewers, we had people doing packaging, administrators, all working on this project for 6 months. So when we got there and we handed out the prints to the family and the flags were being displayed at the family forum, this is the story of how each flag illustrates a personal story of the person that was lost, to share their story and to honor their memory. I decided I wanted to do a flag for Salvatore Pepe, as I had gifted his widow the dream box from our Friendship Box project. So I created an image where she is standing with her son, and the two are gazing at a heavenly message, a constellation that spells out a dream, encouraging them to continue to dream and rebuild in their lives. The next year, her son decided to create a family calendar documenting his father's life with their family throughout the years, and used this print as the cover of the calendar, which was then gifted to the entire family. That is just one of the many stories on how the prints were impactful. And in the previous slide, you saw that there was David Halderman Jr., who was a firefighter. of Squad 18, and his family is holding his print there. And then we also had, at the 10th anniversary, there were many keynote speakers who shared in the support of the families. Here is Ms. Napolitano expressing her appreciation for our community's contributions of art. And here is also the flags, what they look like when they're installed and hanging. And then a couple of years later, we were able to create tribute flags for everyone who was lost at Pentagon. So it was through the efforts of Representative Susan Delbany that we were able to connect to a representative that handled the families of the Pentagon, and thus we could deliver those flags to them that year. So this is just a little snapshot, a sample of the individual stories of those lost as we create and honor and remember. This year is the 20th anniversary. And again, I sat in a meeting and Mary had a brilliant idea. And so we just follow her lead and we create. So this year's art project is the Voices of Reflection art show. We have invited 16 of the original art students who were in the original book project and artists who have contributed for the past 19 years. Together, we have built an art show reflecting on the past 20 years of building resilience. So I would like us to take a moment now to see how community is built through art. We have a preview of the art pieces that have been created for this show. This is the first time it's going to be seen. There's only one piece missing from this group. We're still waiting on it, but the rest of them are all here. So we're going to show that. It's about 4 minutes, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you're inspired by it. So that is the presentation for what we've done and what we've created over the course of 20 years. And if Mary Fetchit is available, I would like to invite her to speak. Is Mary Fetchit here?
I don't know if she's here yet. I would like to say something else is really on behalf of everybody at Voices and all the families, an incredible thank you to Diane. I think, you know, she does not come looking for anybody to be giving her praise, but I can tell you that the families look forward to seeing her. She is a constant. She is the embodiment of kindness. She represents you well. And you know, I get the privilege of like deciding where people are, and I always make sure she's going to be close to wherever I have to be, because I always know that I'm going to see a smiling face. And, you know, while I'm dealing with an awful lot of people who are struggling with a lot of different kinds of emotions on these days, especially in these big anniversaries, I know I can always look over at Diane and she'll give me this little sly smile, and I know she gets it, which is, you know, not a lot of people you can say that about. I also have to say, I'm very jealous. I see all the sunshine behind all of you. I spent many years living on Whidbey Island, ex-military wife. And I miss those days when it was sunny till 10, because if probably you can see over here, it's been dark here since I got on the phone. But anyway, in lieu of Mary coming on, I'm going to try and pull up some slides if I can share my screen, if that's okay.
Can I jump in for just a moment?
Yeah,
And
sure.
I just want to acknowledge that one of our state representatives, Roger Goodman, and our King County Council member, Kathy Lambert, have joined us on this Zoom meeting.
Great. Mayor, thank you. Stephanie, you're welcome to share your screen. If you want to go ahead and bring it up, I'll let you know when we can see it.
Do that.
And while Stephanie's doing that, Diane, I just wanted to say, when I was looking at the Friendship Dream boxes, those tribute flags and memorial quilts, I am amazed at both the volume of art, the work that's been done, as well as all the different types of medium that's been used to produce the art. And clearly the thoughtful and caring words that were provided on the presentation really does touch the heart. And I think it enhances the healing that families are still going through. Well, we have it up and running. Stephanie, go ahead, please.
Okay, great. Well, you know, I've already, Diane's done a great job of explaining to you, but we've been dealing with the 9/11 community, and a lot of people say to us, you know, gee, it's been 20 years, you know, haven't people moved on? But it's really one of the hardest things is actually this is a growing community, because on 9/11, there were about 500,000 people within a quarter of a mile of the buildings, about 400,000 of them being survivors. So our community is growing, and a lot of those people are sick. I'm sure you read about a lot of the stories of these responders who, you know, inhaled all sorts of stuff that was in a building. I mean, glass, computer parts, paper, you know, cement, asbestos. The building was old enough. So there are a lot of very sick people that have, you know, are looking to us also for support. That, you know, people think that it's kind of passage prime, but it's not. So our work is still continuing, and the idea of healing through art has never been more important than it is now. So this is just some basic stuff about how we started as an organization. I mentioned that Mary was very active in advocacy. We held a lot of our very first gatherings were down at the site. We do a lot of collaboration with the museum, and we also, let me move to our community, obviously has, as this is showing you, has grown not only with the number of people who really have been impacted, but if you imagine, there's been 4,300 people who have died since 9/11 of 9/11 related diseases. And those are just the ones that we know about. So imagine the size of the community when 3,000 people died. This is a community that's, you know, unfortunately, I get maybe a 1 or 2 a week of people that we know that have passed away. So their families are in constant need of support and education. So, you know, we're right in the thick of it still. And again, you know, having this forum coming up for 20 years, the families now are reaching out to the families of the responders and survivors who have passed. This is also because of those, you know, unfortunately, there's not a lot of people who have had the level of experience we have. So we have a lot of interaction with other communities. We get called we went down and did a lot of work with not with the families directly, but with the people that were working with the families, because it's got to come from within a community to really be effective. But the people that were doing it for Parkland, or we did it down in El Paso. So we go places and help people, so they don't make the same mistakes we did. I mean, basically, it's, it was sort of on the job training for all of us. I think Diane talked about there's some people I think you might recognize. We've spent a lot of time cultivating these relationships. Mary is particularly good friends with Governor Kane, who was on our board for a short period of time and is always kind of helping us out. We were there when they signed the 9/11 Commission bills, when they passed it. We've been very fortunate to get very good bipartisan support through Congress. Not financial support, but at least support of our ideas. So I think probably of interest to you is some of the organizations that we've had the opportunity to work with. So not only do we work with other NGOs like the American Group Psychiatric Association, but we also work for the CDC with our work with the World Trade Center Health Programs. We've worked with the Victims Compensation Fund, which is run through the Department of Justice. We've done research for the Department of Education. We've done research for the Department of Victims of Crime. I do a lot of work with the FBI and a lot of the problems that they have with agents. And, there's also a lot of stigma about people in service that don't want to have to look for help within their agencies because it's, people are always afraid of that. So we're working with that. We've done a lot of work with the Canadian government. We've done a lot of work with an organization called LINK, which is Leadership in Counterterrorism. So we get to sit at the table of people who have been in the thick of it for years. And it's really, we make sure that everybody that we talk to understands that we're coming from the perspective of the victim's lens, that they don't lose that in their efforts to make sweeping changes, that they don't, inadvertently hurt the people that they think that they're helping, which is something that's usually been a disconnect over years. We worked a lot with the Canadian government creating a framework for delivery of services, which would involve some input with the police departments on how do you restructure things like that based on what is the impact to the community as opposed to what is the impact to the police force or other government force. And then, this year we're approaching 20 years. And as we've been talking about this Voices of Reflection art exhibit, which will be beginning on September 1st and will run for about 6 weeks. We expect lots and lots of school programs to go for hopefully to visit and expect the Silvermine Art Center where it is really, really a very, very highly regarded local art center. We're also going to do the forum, the Remembrance, Reflection, and Resilience Symposium. And I'm looking forward to having Diane there with me. And even our gala, which is our one big fundraising event of the year, I had to point out to Diane today, we're still using her artwork. We're using it for the invitation. So clearly she has permeated everything that we do. And only in a good way. In fact, the face quilt, that's what we refer to it as her memory quilt, it was so well received and people are so excited about it. And that's also going to be in the art program. We've started to replicate it as part of a healing exercise for the families of the responders and the survivors who have passed away, and hope to make something that kind of reflects the families towards the responders and survivors as a big community. So we're doing it the exact same way. So they their lives sort of, reflect each other. So it's been a journey, a wonderful journey. And again, I can't thank her and her students enough for what they do. And, we're happy to come talk to you about anything that we do. If there's any reason that you need information for us, we're always available. I think I always tease at my superhero is that I answer the phone. And it happens to be a very simple one, but it happens to be a very effective one. So I don't want to take any more time, but I'm thrilled that you are letting Diane show what wonderful work she does. She's an incredible artist, which she'd never take credit for herself. And I thank you.
Well, Stephanie, thank you. A great overview. We're pleased that Mary's joined us. Mary, I understand you were at another presentation or busy this evening, so it's just an honor. We've been hearing just the outstanding work you've done, both from technical and plain hard work as well as from your heart. So I'd like to give the floor to you and see if you would like to say anything this evening, Mary.
You're on mute.
There we go. We can hear you.
Oh, she's on mute.
Whoop, we just lost you, Mary. So we'll try it again. It shows you on mute. Maybe we can unmute your computer there, or you can. I think we heard you for just a moment.
Jody, can you see if you can unmute it from your end?
I'm trying.
There we go, Mary. Try it now.
Oh,
So Mary, it shows you're unmuted, but we can't hear you yet.
Mary, you want me to send you the link so you can use your phone? When in doubt, always use the phone, right?
It's a good suggestion.
That's what I'm doing. And Diane, I know that we also have some of the artists online as well.
Mhm. Yes, Dan Cottrell did say hi, so he must be listening in here. I see that Milan Hager is also listening in here. Both very important people in this project throughout the years. So welcome. And I do want to say that King County Council member Kathy Lambert was with us from the very beginning as a supporter of what we were doing and knew of the story. And I remember her coming out to speak as well when we had this, did the book project.
Well, thank you, Diane. I think we're just sending a phone link to Mary so she could speak with us through that. So Diane, you will be traveling back for the 9/11 remembrance this year. And I believe that's on the 10th and 11th, is that correct?
Yes, I go on the 9th and 10th is when the symposium and all the workshops happen. And what we do is we have a table set up and all the gifts are presented and the families come and they select a gift. The table is always empty every single year. Sometimes it empties fairly early. And so this year with the this big show, I had no idea that to wrangle 27 artists to create art for a show was going to be as challenging. Thank goodness for my assistant. But they all did it and it got done. And it was one of those things where, you know, you send it out there and say, think about 20 years. What does resilience mean from your experience with working with voices and the families? And so what you saw is sort of the culmination of all these ideas. A lot of the 16 people are working as artists and designers today. So.
Well, thank you. Well, Mary, I don't know if our technology is failing us here. I think we sent you a phone link. Do you have that, Mary?
I just gave permission for a 203. Is that you, Mary?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
There we go, Mary. We have you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Oh my God, technology. Number one, I want to thank Stephanie for stepping in. Of all nights, you know, to have a conflict, I didn't realize, but it's that time of year with the 20th anniversary. It's almost, you know, well, things are unpredictable, but there are also a lot, you know, coming at us. But I want to just say that what a treasure that you have in Diane Bernecke. And, you know, just what an honor it's been to know her. You know, we met, you know, actually right after 9/11 when she was trying to distribute her books. And we actually ran into an event. We had talked, but ran into each other at an event that was being held in New York City. and so the relationship's gone on from there, you know, and she's been very tolerant of our schedules and just the artists that she's brought forward that have been so kind and generous and thoughtful, with the work that they've done. We just can't, but, there's no way that you can measure that. And that's truly, I think, one of the big gifts that we've had, over the last 20 years.
Well, thank you, Mary. We look at the body of work that you've done and the groups that you're working with to help provide support. Some of us feel pretty helpless, especially clear across the country. But we watch the work that Diane in our own community is doing this last 20 years, and we're very proud of her as well. But want to recognize all that you've done for these families, and it just keeps growing. You're not just those directly affected, but those indirectly affected are still receiving support. I wanted to take a moment for Kathy Lambert and Representative Goodman, just see if you had a few words that you would like to say. Kathy?
Thank you. Well, I'm honored to be here. This is definitely the highlight of my day. And I remember Diane when she first talked about this idea right when 9/11 happened, and that she wanted to do something and make a difference. And she certainly has. And I remember one of the very first pictures, and it was one her son did. That was the branch with an eagle on it. And it was so beautiful that I was really touched by it. And I made that known to Diane. And so she made sure that I would always have that memory. And I am very thankful for not only how she brings beauty and life and joy to everybody around her, but as was said earlier, she is selfless in the way that she approaches things in life and looks for how she can show care and trust and build community. And I was very impressed with all the artwork and the two things where they said embrace every day and every life. And then the parting comment from Diane herself that I thought was really beautiful is the people came together and they manifested a revolution of love. And so I hope Duval will be the beginning of a revolution of love. So thank you, Diane, for teaching all these people along the way to show love and to show it through art so we can all heal in whatever is happening in our lives. So thank you, Diane, and to all your team and your artists.
Thank you, Kathy. Roger Goodman, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Mike. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm not surprised at the just top shelf quality of this work. Diane is well known in the community for this. And I know she's going to be cycling off the council, but not as she'll continue her prominent role in the community. So thank you, Diane, and your family for all of and just stepping into your house, even looking outside your house, that you are all about art and aesthetic interests. Very classy. I just remember, I can't believe it's 20 years ago. None of us can. Where did it all go? I look in the mirror like, oh my God, what happened? But, it was only maybe for a few days, but everyone came together in this country and in our communities right after that. And maybe through this work and work like it, to remember, we can help to bring our communities together again and our whole country. So it's an inspiration to me. And so thanks very much to Diane and all the work that you've done.
Roger, thank you. Well, Diane, do you have any final words after your presentation here?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this 20 years is really about Seattle Art Project, a body, a community of people who came together for 20 years, devoted themselves. It was all about we are all the way on the West Coast and we would go all the way to the East Coast. And we wanted the families to know they were not forgotten and that we were going to honor their loved ones. And so I'm just really proud of our state, of the community we've built here, and all the community members who are part of this project and who have been generous to give throughout the years. So thank you to all of you out there. Could not have happened, and what you've done has changed lives.
Mhm.
Diane, thank you for bringing the presentation to us tonight. As you mentioned, very touching. I just pray that God will bless you and that you'll be safe in your journeys as you go back for the 20-year anniversary of 9/11. Well, thank you to all of our special guests. And I wanted to recognize that we have 15 attendees this evening. We usually don't have that many. And so we greatly appreciate our citizens when they join us. All of you are welcome to continue with us as we continue on our meeting to our other agenda items. But I also realize that you're busy, and if you need to head off to other commitments, we understand fully. So thank you.
Mike, can I,
yes.
may I, just
Yes,
for a
Mayor,
moment,
go ahead, please.
to Mary, I've heard so much about you over the last 12 years from Diane, and it is absolutely a privilege to get to meet you in person virtually. And thank you as well for all of that you've done through your grief to transform it into something positive and healing, and having the great relationship with Diane that you and your organization have had is absolutely incredible. And I really appreciate you, and thank you for being here.
Well, I'm looking forward to being in Seattle in February. So hopefully I'll get to meet all of you in person then.
I would love that.
Right. Diane's having a party in her new kitchen when I come.
It sounds like an invite for the entire community. I love it. Need a
Right.
bigger kitchen, Diane.
Well, I'll try.
Well, Mary. With that, we'll.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody. Thank you so
Wait.
much. And thank you again for lending us Diane and all the wonderful people that come out with her.
Yeah. Good night.
Financial planning. Good night, everyone. Next item is financial planning process with our interim city administrator, Mr. Ryan Cotton. Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council. And that last presentation was all about resiliency and sustainability and of human relationships. This one is about sustainability and resiliency about financial relationships in the city of Duval. So with that, I want to thank Councilmember Lengel for getting this up and rolling, at least in my tenure on April 20th. I know it was part of the budget before that. And also Councilmember Naplin, who did a lot of research that contributed to the request for proposal. And of course, Mayor Okerlander for her review and suggestions along the way. At the last council meeting, I indicated that this was not ready to go out for an RFP, but that it was the next highest priority after the city administrator recruitment. That did come to pass. It has been issued. I'm going to go over it in a bit. The RFP responses will be opened on April 24th or be available. And hopefully this will be on the City Council agenda for September 7th. Ahead of time, the Finance and Administration Committee, I'd like to give them a briefing on September 2nd. So the timetable after that will be up to the City Council. I say that because there's $20,000 in the budget, and there's quite a few, let's say, enthusiastically endorsed approaches to getting this independent financial review. And having said that, though, we want to rely on the consultants to propose what they have done and done well in the past, and not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but hopefully plug in Duval's experiences and the future of Washington cities like Duval and their expertise into at least a 10-year scenario and a variety of scenarios that is independently achieved to give us what we need to know so you can make the best decisions possible. Only you can make huge decisions that will influence Duval greatly over the next 10 years. And with this knowledge, as you know, through the fact that you budgeted for this, you will be insightful and able to make the best outcomes possible. So that is by way of introduction. I'm going to get into the weeds just a bit, and then I'll pause and see if you have any feedback. The request for proposal was issued. You have a copy of it. You all gave me feedback along the way if you had a particular insight, which I attempted to incorporate, not to control what the outcome would be, but rather to let the consultants know that we were sincere and serious about an outcome here that would be beneficial for the long term. With the help of Dana and Sherry, it is on public purchase. 73 firms have looked at the request for proposal, and 4 firms attended the first pre-proposal conference that we held yesterday. We have another one scheduled next week, and one of those firms has made it clear that they will be submitting a proposal. So we will have one or more competitors in achieving this outcome. I think I'm gonna, well, I'll just say one more thing. Duval is at a point of making great strides, it appears to me, whether it relates to facilities or the compensation plan that's under review, the facility plan that's under review, the utility planning that's happening in terms of capital needs. There is a lot that is being viewed as important, and all of it is, yet how to do it and how to do it with the most fiscal responsibility and also maximizing resources, which are never as much as we would like, is the question. So this 10-year independent financial review will answer those questions. There's $20,000 in the budget. The council action may not be necessary because it's within the mayor's spending authority on September 7th, but we do want to brief you. However, I expect that there will be some options that will exceed the budget, and you may wish to consider those in light of a budget adjustment. That tells you enough, I think, to get your thoughts flowing, and it's not too late to modify the RFP if you have something that you noted that was egregiously wrong or missing. We will put out an addendum if so. That's the way the public purchase works. And I'll stop there. Is there anything I can answer at this time?
Council members, any questions for Mr. Cotton related to our financial planning process? Ryan, I'm not seeing any hands here. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Lingle.
I just wanted to express my appreciation for putting the extra effort into getting this out. As everybody knows, this is very important to me. I remember when Mr. Cotton asked me why I got on council, and I told him it was fear. And fear that we wouldn't get through this growth cycle. And I've been around Washington taxation laws long enough to know that it is not in a small city's favor. And so it really is fear. And that's why I have wanted this to happen. And I really appreciate his work on it because it really means a lot to me. Thanks.
Thank you, Dorothy. I think we all recognize that this long-range financial planning for our city is something that will outlast all of us, most likely, if it's done well, and help safeguard our community. So thank you for your commitment for this. Mr. Cotton, you also have the next item, personnel manual update process. I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. A similar process, request for proposal was put out. I did that because this was one of the goals of the interim city administrator, was to update the personnel policies and to look at whether there could be a different process for doing so, a process that would enable a more nimble amendment procedure going forward, which meant that maybe Chapter 4 could be radically different in the future and not be as cumbersome or time consuming when things change at the state level or the national level. So I looked at a number of options and I gave a report in COW. It was a written report. I don't know if I reported on it verbally, but basically it looked at a national service or using local legal services. And the cost is pretty much a wash. I want to thank Chief DeBach, who brought me knowledge about Lexipol, which is a service that many fire and police agencies use and for decades to keep current, and also to include with electronic means, a way of training their personnel and notifying their personnel, and also making sure all personnel are accountable for being up to date with the myriad of many policies and procedures necessary associated with police work that are, especially this year, under a great deal of review and amendment. So that is essential for all kinds of public safety purposes, but also because of liability purposes. So I was charged to look at the personnel rules from a macro perspective and to recognize that at a minimum, we need to find a more streamlined approach of staying current. And at a maximum, also make sure that we are as inclusive and have the appropriate equity considerations that are so important to retaining and attracting personnel these days, as well as staying abreast of all our legal requirements. So Lexipol is an option, or using a whole lot more legal services is another option. I will say that I am trained in human resources to a certain extent. I'm pretty knowledgeable about it, but not to the degree that was necessary for this task. I concluded that the best approach would then be to go to the marketplace. It's a free economy, right? And see what we can learn. And so through public purchase, once again, with Dana's support and Sherry's support, that was issued. And by the way, Jody, I mentioned Jody collected a bunch of the documents and put them in the right spot so the consultants could review them. We had 51 views of that request for proposal. The deadline for that was this morning at 11 o'clock. On the one hand, I'm sad to say that only one response was received. On the other hand, it tends to vindicate the fact that Duval is looking at this in a forward, proactive manner, because only Lexipol is the one that responded. And in their letter, it's called a sole source letter that is on file now with the clerk's office. They indicated, and it was proven true, they are the only service that for the general group employees can accomplish what our goals were. And our goals were similar to what police and fire have nationwide now. So their proposal is, the numbers have not changed from when I first talked to them. I also had reached out to other providers. I didn't rely solely on public purchase. I did a video interview with one and had some emails with others and did a lot of web searching. And basically, it is true. There is no other provider like Lexipol. So we're down to two options. These two options will be on the City Council agenda for September 7th, and I will flesh them out. Lexipol is around $14,000 per year, one time, and then around $4,000 per year to keep the rest of our personnel current through all the electronic means I mentioned. The cost of legal services is kind of unknown, but I did some estimates and it's about a wash. It could be actually a great deal more. I will say that this is not budgeted. However, we don't ever seem to have a hard budget for legal services. It ebbs and flows depending on the priorities that arise. So without this, I can pretty well predict that our costs will only go up in terms of personnel, labor relations, and legal services, because there's so much that we need to continually be checking on because we don't have a service like this to otherwise be keeping us abreast. So that's a long way of saying on September 7th, you can expect a full report, including options. Nothing will happen, however, unless you ask me to do it on my limited hours and less than total knowledge. I'm happy to. Or you choose another option, which involves an attorney and their staff for some period of time, or a national service like Lexipol. I need to add one more thing. Although Lexipol knows a lot, and it's the only one that can do this, what we want, it won't be without some point of contact with the city of Duval. So it'll likely be the city administrator that you are engaged in hiring, and we'll be talking about further. That will be the likely person that will be the major point of contact. So you'll still hear a lot about this from people who have knowledge like me, to work alongside and in tandem to make sure that all of the policies, maybe it's based on law in Washington, but is then incorporated within our practice in a way that is meaningful and appropriate. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Ryan. Questions or feedback from city council members? Councilmember Naplin.
I didn't hear, did you call on me?
Councilmember Naplin, I'm sorry, my computer's breaking up a little, so I'm sorry if I'm a little dicey. So Councilmember Naplin and then Councilmember Hoag.
Yeah, I've provided some feedback and kind of questions about this approach. I think when I hear that the only service provider for this is Lexipol, and I also try to do some research and don't see any other cities in the state of Washington using Lexipol in this way. I mean, there's a few that seem to, maybe at least one that uses it for, certain mandatory training, but I don't see any city using it to manage their personnel policies. I think it's because police and fire, perhaps use Lexipol to integrate laws into operational procedures, maybe, or policies and how they conduct their police and fire work. But the personnel policies that apply to general staff, a lot of them are really policy. Some are just, kind of generic, but a lot of them are really up to the city council to decide, like how much, vacation, leave, how all of these things work that are really policy decisions and not necessarily just trying to comply with state law. So when I look at Chapter 4, there's a whole lot of it that is at the preference of the city of what can be afforded, and each city kind of operates a little bit differently. It's not just about complying with the law. So I'm a little puzzled by this approach, and I think perhaps the research that there aren't others, other providers, and we can't really find other cities doing this. It could be not just because we are doing something innovative and great, but that maybe it's a little bit of an unusual fit and not really going to solve a problem that we have. When I look at the times we've modified Chapter 4, it's not always to comply with state law or things like that. It's because we've had to make changes that are policy based and come to council and would probably require legal work anyway, even if we use Lexipol. So I'm a little bit puzzled by it, and a lot of what's in Chapter 4 would always need approval by council. So I just find it a little puzzling. So that's my feedback.
Thank you, Jennifer. I've worked myself with Lexipol primarily at City of Kirkland. It was originally started for police departments. As been mentioned, it moved on to fire. I think one reason you don't see a lot of it, there's several reasons. One is Lexipol originally did not do municipal employee policy, other than the fact they were doing police and fire. But they realized it was, very similar, and they branched off and have been doing it for a while. But not so long that everybody has jumped on board yet. Many cities, municipalities have their own HR department, including attorneys there. And so when new things come up, they're staying abreast and bring it on board and incorporate. For us, it's a challenge, of course, since we don't have our own HR department. And I'm not trying to sell it or not sell it. It's a good program. They have a whole bank of attorneys. They specialize in their research and bringing up best practices for cities. There's some cities that go to Lexipol, adopt all the policies and then drop them afterwards. The beauty of maintaining it, of course, is that they are constantly sending you updates. It's free, you get training and all the other things that come with it. And when I say free, there's a yearly cost, but you don't pay more every time a policy comes out, they automatically do it. But it's a good question. I think that that's something that we'll need to take a close look at. Councilmember Hoag.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I am totally in agreement with everything that Councilmember Naplin just said. So, but I guess to add to it is the last few weeks I've been spending a lot of time reading through Chapter 4 multiple times, and there probably is a lot of stuff in there that could be removed, like training, code of conduct type issues, discipline, safety, uniforms. There is a lot of in there that could be removed, but the things that shouldn't be removed from Chapter 4 would be like medical coverage, layoff, the reclassifications that we work so hard to modify, employee pay, vacations, sick leave, maternity leave. There's a lot in there that has financial aspects to it for the city. So I think just completely removing Chapter 4 shouldn't be considered. It's very concerning to me to have that removed. And I don't really know enough about Lexipol to comment on that aspect of it, but I just feel very strongly about Chapter 4. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Councilmember Lingle.
I guess two things that immediately popped to mind. It might be a little different. I remember Mr. Cotton saying in a couple different meetings, what's broken, and focusing on what's broken. And I think in terms of a scope of work, I think it's fine the way the RFP was done and all of that. But I think in terms of what kind of a contract we would want to see, I would think we would want to have something really focused on the items that we feel are not current and sort of cross out in terms of removals, things that are policy based. That actually, I didn't do a whole lot of research on this, but I did go through our existing council book, and there's a reason why the RCWs in the state are written the way they are, and it does tie to budget. Labor negotiation is one that immediately pops out, but there's a bunch of other things that they list as being council responsibilities, and they are the things that are tied back to budget. The second thing is that this kind of goes to his point about working with an attorney, and it might be a wash. So if we focus the work, if we could focus the work when we get to the contract negotiation stage, it might be that an attorney is the better way to go. And I'll tell you why that pops into my mind is that I've been very pleased with Ogden Murphy Wallace, and they have a very good, I think, attorney that deals with employment law. And so it might be that with a focused approach, we could, even with our existing law firm, I'm not saying you wouldn't have to set aside money for this, but it might be that we could get a more on-focused, Duval-centric product that was still in compliance with federal and state law. And so that's just a thought, since we're kicking around options for how to do that. And, you know, it might even be something like perhaps someone with Mr. Cotton's expertise works with our attorney to do a document like that. So there's really a blending of experiences, a real world experience of an administrator working with highly qualified legal counsel that we already have a comfort level with. So I'm not pushing anything here either, but I do like the thought that we're going to think about this a little bit more as things evolve to September 7th, because there could be more than one way that would still keep cost containment. It might not be the 14,000, but that is more rooted in what Duval is already, as well as what it should be around, you know, affirmative action for whatever that's now referred to, you know, more comprehensive recruitment. It could be a whole bunch of things that really don't need to be in code, for sure. So that's something at just listening to people I thought of, you know. I guess I'd never really given much thought to an attorney writing the document in entirety. That never would have crossed my mind.
Well, thank you. Mr. Cotton. I think we have you on mute still. There we go.
Yes, thank you for that feedback. And some of that was shared with me, and I appreciate the reinforcement. I just want to let all the council members know that the idea of what to do with Chapter 4 is a secondary question. Updating what's in Chapter 4 is the primary question. So and the outcomes depend, as I just mentioned, on the options, and certainly what to do with Chapter 4. Lexipol can stay if it's, Chapter 4 can stay in on variety of, no matter what the option. However, it's cumbersome, and there's a resolution process that is an option that the attorney and I have spoken of. So I don't know what the Mayor Pro Tem or Mayor Okerlander prefers, but what I'm kind of hearing is that maybe this is better for a COW discussion, more detailed discussion with a review of the options at the next meeting, as opposed to an agenda bill. And I'm happy to do that or the other, as you prefer.
I think that would be helpful. Mayor?
Yeah, and actually, you know, I'm hearing some things that are, to Ryan's point, are not necessarily related to Lexipol. But I think, you know, some key points are, I think, need a little more attention, and one of which is employee training. So I just pulled up their website. City of Anacortes is one of these users of the service, and it specifically says, City of Anacortes has appreciated access to GovOne. After registering employees, it provides us an excellent ability to complete training that is necessary, but not always readily available in person. The sexual harassment training has been particularly effective to be able to offer immediately to new employees. I appreciate that there's a simple test following the training to ensure focus during the training session. And that's one of the key components that the city has always been lacking in, and that is training. Whether it's existing policies or policies outside of it. And I think that what, besides just a COW, what probably would be useful, since we now have that one proposal in, is to invite OpenGov to do a presentation and question and answer during COW. Because you know, we can't get all of that information from directly an RFP, and it sounds like there's some nuanced questions that I think council could benefit from asking. My understanding is most of this policy is directly related to state and federal law. It's sexual harassment policies. It is, you know, there's nothing that precludes the city from having additional policies outside of what is taught in Lexipol. So,
excuse me, Mayor. Mayor, you said OpenGov at one point for Q&A.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
meant Lexipol. Sorry, my brain. I've been going nonstop since 9 o'clock this morning, so I apologize. I get a little mixed up at times, but with Lexipol, I think, I think that having them come and present what actually the municipal option is, and perhaps doing a demo on it might answer questions where people are skeptical and help people make a better policy choice. I will say off the bat that I am definitely much more inclined to support Lexipol for the simple purpose that those state and federal laws get updated and our staff are required to be trained on them. And that training can go into their employment files. And I think that that's a really important thing. It's worked very, very well for police and fire. And I think it would really improve the way our city operates by and improve our managers' ability to manage their employees by literally a manager being able to look in a file and see who's done their training instead of having to search out a personnel file and keep the manual records themselves. So I really, really think that, to the point of having a cow, that's really important, but I think we should also work to have Lexipol come and present to us directly.
I don't have anything else to add.
Can hear me. Mr. Cotton, we're down to 9 minutes. I'm sorry, Dorothy, I see your hands up. Councilmember Langle.
Well, I'm glad the mayor is zeroing in on something that is particularly important. As I've heard her input now, it just kind of in my mind reinforces that there might be more than one way to get what everybody wants. And so when we hear more, and without reading Lexipol's proposal, I'm a little concerned about getting so many presentations on the COW agenda that there's other things that the COW needs to do and we don't end up getting to them. And so I'm getting a little sensitive to that, but maybe if we can start by looking at the Lexipol response and maybe the mayor identifying the key things that she doesn't have to write big memo to say, hey, these are the 5 things I really think they can do uniquely or something, so we can focus. That might help me anyway, because I don't want to delay something. But I also don't want something like this to be a mismatch.
Well, thank you, Dorothy. Mr. Cotton, we're down to 7 minutes. I'd like to move our council retreat update to the administrative update at City Council, if that works for everyone. I see a lot of heads nodding. Mayor, does that work for you as well?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, and go to the order again. If you have something specific, please raise your hand when the mayor asks for those that would like to speak. So with that,
sounds like we lost Mike again.
I think he was planning to adjourn it. Mayor, I think it'd be appropriate if the mayor wants to adjourn it on his behalf.
All right, we will go ahead and adjourn committee of the whole and resume council at 7 p.m.
Bye, everyone.